listener production.
Hello, it's Antoinette Lattouf. This is the Weekend Briefing, and it's where we momentarily hit pause on the headlines, and I'm lucky enough to spend time with somebody fascinating. You know, I meet a lot of really interesting people doing this job and throughout my career, and rarely do I get nervous interviewing somebody, or rarely do I find myself sort of overwhelmed by the success or the impact or the skills and talent somebody has. But that's exactly what I was reckoning with and processing in the lead up to interviewing Rachel Perkins. She is an Indigenous Australian filmmaker. She founded Blackfella Films, and she's directed a whole bunch of acclaimed films and TV series, including First Australians, One Night the Moon, Mabo, the telemovie, and more recently the docuseries The Australian Wars on SBS. Rachel also played a pivotal role in the Voice to Parliament referendum. There's so much in this discussion that I was left to ponder with, and I am still grappling with. The balance between creativity and advocacy, taking time to rest and recalibrate, and the power of storytelling. Trust me, you do not want to miss this chat. Strap in. Later in the show, there is a bit of a tone and gear shift because it is the weekend list with Helen Smith, and that is your go-to guide on what to watch, see, eat and do. But first, my chat with Rachel Perkins. Rachel, welcome to the Weekend Briefing.
Thank you for having me.
So you were born in Canberra, but your roots pulled you to Alice Springs. I want to know what it was like reconnecting with your paternal grandmother's country and how that place, I imagine, shaped your creative or cultural worldview.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Canberra mostly in the 70s, and we used to go back home. We'd do these epic drives at Christmas time from Canberra all the way to Alice. It was 3,000 kilometres.
Oh, that is huge.
Yeah, it was like dirt roads back then for most of it. You know, once you get past sort of Adelaide, it turns to dirt. So we used to do these epic drives. So we knew where we were from in terms of our Aboriginal, you know, my father's mother and the Aboriginal culture that was there in Alice. But we never really lived. We'd lived there for a year or so, but yeah, I went back then when I was 18, much later, and it did draw me back because I was growing up in Canberra. I felt quite disconnected to my culture, and I wanted to go home to Alice and really find out about it. So it was this thing that just drew me back, and it still does draw me back even today, you know, 40 years later.
And you mentioned at 18 you moved there, so you applied for a job to get an airfare to Alice Springs, I read. Is that correct? You didn't get that job, but you ended up with a traineeship at Impaja. What did those early days teach you, not just about production, but about the purpose of art?
Well, that's right. I didn't really think about being a filmmaker. I wasn't interested in the media industry necessarily, but there was this, traineeship going. They would fly me there. So I thought, okay, well, that's good.
At a media company, a traineeship at a media company,
yes. There was this, this was in the late 80s. It was a radio station. It had a record label and it had a little TV unit which had just been established, and they were looking for trainees to go and work at this little media association. I was like, okay, well, I don't really, I'll just go and get an airfare, see what happens. So
you were, the airfare was covered so you could go and apply for the job?
That's right. They were flying people in for interviews.
So you accidentally, I guess, fell into the world of...
Yeah, I did. Well, the job that they were interviewing me for was to be a TV presenter, and I don't really like being on television. It was really not what I wanted to do, but I thought I'll just get there and then I won't get that job. Something else will happen.
And it did happen.
And it did happen, yeah. They offered me a different job in the camera team, making film. And so I just, the next day I started and I was recording sound. And then, that was 1988. So whatever's 35 years later, whatever it is, I stopped counting after a while. Yeah. Here I am.
So at 21, just a few years after that traineeship, you became executive producer of the Indigenous unit at SBS.
Yes, that was...
And that was a big team.
Yeah, well, your big team of one, me. Yes. Yeah, that's right. I mean, SBS, it was still early days of SBS back then. That would have been 1991. So... Yeah, it was Indigenous media or Aboriginal filmmaking was a new thing then. And so they had some Aboriginal content on SBS, but they had this job going as the executive producer of the Indigenous unit. So I applied for that. I came back to Sydney, took up that job. But yeah, there was just me. So we had to then recruit a team. And I was so young, I didn't really have the experience. I didn't really know how to write a memo. But actually at SBS, I really found people from that multicultural community who worked there. They really embraced me. They taught me a lot, and they completely understood the importance of Indigenous voices in the media. So they supported me even though they could see I was young and inexperienced.
So you've obviously built a very illustrious career out of telling stories that were, quite frankly, denied to us at school. Films like First Australians, The Australian Wars, Mabo. Has truth-telling on screen changed public memory, or is it still poking at it?
I think we've got a long way to go because most people of my generation, like I'm 55 now, and so people of my generation and older, we didn't learn anything at school about this country's past and Indigenous people's place in that history. And so all of my friends learnt very little. I think filmmaking is a great tool because it can go into people's homes and it can go into schools. It's a great resource to give back people that knowledge. And those titles you mentioned, First Australians, Mabo and The Australian Wars that I've made, those documentary series and telemovies, when people watch them, the overwhelming response is, why didn't I know about that? Why wouldn't we taught that at school? Like, people are angry that they missed out on these epic, incredible stories. So that's the response I think that people have. But, you know, what have we got, 21 million Australians or something like that? It's a big piece of work to do to sort of bring the whole country to understand, you know, the roots of the big story that is Australia.
So you were the co-chair of the Yes campaign. What was it like, I guess, recovering from that and rechanneling energy into the creative space? You just kind of did a little exhale expression. I know it's a big question.
Well, no, I think, so I was really involved in the referendum campaign because I believe that, like other countries like New Zealand, Canada, that the First People should be recognised in the founding document and should have a way of speaking to government about their issues. I feel like that's important. So I gave a lot of my time to the campaign, and yeah, it was hugely disappointing, the loss. But, you know, those great losses, you know, you read all the material, it says you must learn from those mistakes. You must learn from failure. That, you know, what are the things that those things provide in life? What are the lessons they learn? And so I've really thought deeply about that and what I can do in response to that and how to channel that into positive outcomes. So, yes, it is one of the hardest lessons. It's one of the greatest losses, but good things can still come from it.
So on those days when injustice or apathy feels suffocating, what keeps you moving creatively? Like, where does that spark come from? Because there has to be times when, you know, and I feel it absolutely myself, when hope feels in short supply.
Yes, well, people say that you must hold on to hope because although, you know, some people say it's naive to hope, hope can be a galvanising force for people because when you have nothing else, what left do you have left? Well, hope is something that can keep you going. Hope for better, hope for change. So I think that's an important human characteristic. But look, I haven't made anything film-wise for a while. It's the first time in my life, well, since I was 18, that I'm not really working on the next film project. I gave a lot of my time to the referendum. I made the Australian Wars documentary series, which we'll talk about soon. And that just sort of... that was a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And so I'm just sort of picking up the pieces of, you know, getting organised, getting my life back in order after, you know, you give so much to those things and then you just need to get things a bit more on track. So I'm just sort of getting my house in order.
Recovering?
Recovering from that. I mean, the Australian Wars took me 5 years to make and the referendum I was working on, you know, mostly voluntarily for probably 10 years. So, I mean, not 10 years full time, but over a 10-year period. So it was a lot, yeah. So I'm just sort of warming up and thinking about what's next.
While you're warming up and thinking about what's next, you are still doing other things. You are the chair of AFTRS, the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. That's an institution you studied at during the early 90s. What does it feel like to be part of a place where that helped give you your start, especially at a time when arts funding has been turbulent?
Yeah, look, I am doing other things, I should say.
Yeah, I know,
I'm not just
sounds
sitting
like
around,
you're just hanging around.
rearranging my sock drawer. I'm the chair of the Australian Film, Television, Radio School, which is a great privilege. And I think something about walking into that building and seeing all those mostly young people who have just huge ambition and positivity and hope to carve creative careers and contribute, their storytelling and their passion to the world is magnificent. And so my job there, I suppose, as the chair is to open doors and enable them to do that and make our school, it's already one of the best schools, film, television, radio schools in the world, but we want to really get it up there. So we bring a vision of what the school means in our Pacific Oceanic region, how we want our students to succeed, what success looks like, and how to make studying at the school easy as possible because, the cost of living crisis is impacting people right across the country and students mostly. So, we're just trying to enable them to pursue great careers and contribute to Australian culture.
And you were going to mention a few of the other things you were doing while you were supposedly resting and not working.
Well, I've started a clothing label. I know I look very dishevelled and I'm not very well groomed. I'm particularly feeling like that at the moment. But, I've started a clothing label called a Chen, which in my language means precious. So it's a very boutique label that collaborates with Aboriginal art centres in Northern Australia. So there's that. I'm working on reforming the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act with the federal government.
What does that entail?
Well, it entails looking at the law that exists, looking at changes that might be made to improve it for Aboriginal people to protect and Torres Strait Islanders to protect our cultural heritage while enabling business and development to occur in the best practice ways. So really putting Indigenous people at the table in decision-making over their heritage, but and close to business so that they can make better agreements. So protect, out of Juukan Gorge, basically, that thing we all heard about in the Kimberley, in the Pilbara, should I say. There's been a call for the reform of these laws, and so we've been working on that for the last 4 years. We're getting close, and so we'll go out to consultation soon on that. And then after the referendum, I also thought, well, what can I do now, talking about those hard lessons? There's still a need, it might not be constitutionally enshrined, but there's still a need for First Nations people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to have some sort of voice about their culture and what happens on their land and sea. So there's that as well.
That's the busiest downtime I've ever heard.
I have also arranged my sock drawer in that time as well, which is good, yeah.
Circling back to art for a moment, art's often described as a place that's healing, that can provide unity. Does it feel like that now, or is it harder to work freely when certain narratives or certain truths, when I say certain truths, I kind of sound like Donald Trump, like alternative facts, is increasingly seen as a threat or politicised or linked to threats of defunding?
I think in Australia, we have seen in recent times truth-telling initiatives, such as the one that was underway in Queensland, be shut down with a change of government. So the truth is a very sensitive topic in a highly contested political environment. And part of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which many of your listeners will have heard of, one of the pillars of that was for a truth-telling commission. So I think it does take political bravery to face truth, and then what happens after the truth has been told? What's the action that follows that? That is always the pointy end, I think, and that's why sometimes people don't want the truth to come out because then what is the action that happens afterwards? So I think, yes, we're in a time where truth is contested. There are variations of truth, but certainly in this context of Australian history, we are overdue for a systematic process of truth-telling. We've seen it happen in Victoria very successfully with the UROC Commission, and it's a guiding light to what might happen in other states. But as I said, in Queensland, they've just shut it down.
Yeah.
So
it must be really frustrating because it's like on the one hand, we want to celebrate Indigenous truth-telling, we want to fund Indigenous artists, here we'll take a lovely painting or something that makes us feel okay. But if the truth or the body of work cuts too close to home or makes us feel uncomfortable, there may be a repercussion. It may be shut down.
That's right. And a lot of work was put into the truth-telling process in Queensland. I know the historians who worked on it. I know Joshua Creamer, who was the head of it. So it's gutting, I think. So, but the truth will prevail, I think. That's what we know. We know from history that it will come out. It will prevail. We have to have hope, and we have to pursue the truth, because in pursuing truth, we can then move on. I think in respect of Indigenous people, we've carried the tale of this violent conflict that was the colonisation of Australia. For far too long, we have had to carry that in our own families. And it's not just our story, it's the story of the continent. And once it's told, like all stories, then one can move on and there can be some sort of justice in that telling. I mean, I've experienced that in my own life as a filmmaker. There's a wonderful relief in having the story put there and told and there for all to see. It's good for the people who are telling the stories, and it feels transformative for the teller. And so I've witnessed the power of that process.
So let's talk about the Australian War series for screen and the adaptation that you co-edited in written form.
Yes, so the Australian Wars, it's maybe a confusing name for some people. If you haven't heard that term before, you might think, oh, is that like the First World War and the Second World War? Well, no, we've used this term, and we were inspired by people in Aotearoa, New Zealand, who changed the word Maori Wars to describe those wars of colonisation there to the New Zealand Wars. So we deliberately chose this name, the Australian Wars, which isn't a commonly used term, to describe the period of violence and warfare that occurred around the country from really the 1790s, just after European arrival, and that slowly traversed the continent over about 100 or more year period as colonisation moved across the continent. So it began in New South Wales and went down to Tasmania and Victoria, then up the coast, east coast of Australia, and then over in Perth, and then finally completed up in the Kimberleys in the late 1920s. So there were violence, conflicts everywhere that land was occupied. Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders resisted that occupation of their country, and violence then ensued. Sometimes we call it frontier warfare.
Yes.
Because it's a moving frontier, this sort of settlement. Some people call it occupation, others call it invasion, whatever the term is.
But it's also crucially highlighting that there was always resistance.
Yes, I think that's a big story that doesn't get told, because, we think, oh, yes, well, the Native Americans, or the Indians, as people call them, we've grown up watching those westerns where we see, the Indians coming across the horizon with their horse. Oh, they fought, or we know, oh, well, the Maoris, we know they fought. Well, in Australia, we've had this convenient truth or narrative that has suggested that Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders didn't resist. They just disappeared, or they just happily, there was this peaceful settlement of Australia. It's the big... Oh, what do you call it?
Lie?
Yeah, well, I was trying to think of another word that wasn't. Yeah, I know.
I said it for you.
Thanks for saying that for me, because I was like, it's the big, the big lie. Let's call it that. So it's the big lie that sort of is the foundational narrative of the country, that it was like one of the few peaceful continents. It was all lovely, but it wasn't. So, I mean, it was in parts. These frontier histories, they're complex, right? There's friendships, and there's all sorts of things that happen on frontiers. There's love, there's sex, death, trade, everything. But there's always usually violence.
As I understand, the book adaptation, is this your first time you've co-edited this sort of piece of literature?
Well, yeah. So the series took 5 years to make, and it's 3 parts, 3 1 hours. And actually it's very watchable, so don't be too put off by it. It's not completely depressing, actually. It's quite inspiring, and there's dramatisations, and it's great seeing these warriors come to life and that sort of the strange interaction. So it's affecting, but it's not a turn-off. So I encourage you to watch it, and you will learn things that, I didn't know. So there's amazing stories there. But yes, so then we were like, once the series went to air, I got all these calls from publishers. Like, I got like 4 different publishers ring me and like, let's do the story. I was like, oh, okay. And so now we've finally gotten around, because at the time we're like, it's big enough just doing the series. Let's not worry about a book. So, but now we've done the book, and the book is very substantial. It's almost 100,000 words. We've gathered authors from every state and territory.
Yep.
There's never been a book that tells the national story, because a lot of this history is written in very regional areas. Like someone will write something about Tasmania or the north of Tasmania or southeast Queensland or, the Torres Straits or the Kimberley.
So you would have kept learning even throughout this process.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the amount of authors we've had come together, so I think there's more than 15 authors who've contributed. Great writers like David Marr, whose amazing book about his great uncle, Killing for Country. So he's contributed.
Okay, so it's both the sort of coloniser and colonised perspective?
Yes, it's a mixture of authors, both Aboriginal, Torres Strait and, other Australian authors.
Yeah.
So it's very much a mixed contributions. And I think that's the spirit of how we should approach these stories, because it's not just our story, right? It's not just Aboriginal people's story or Torres Strait Islander story. Like, there were 2 sides to this. Lots of Australian families were caught up in this. Lots of Australian families still live with that history. There's still a lot of Australian families who have had this land in their family for many generations. It's part of their story too.
So you've worked across a range of mediums and served on pretty much every major screen and cultural board in the country. And when you stripped all of that away, the awards, the institutions, what's been the one thing that you're most proud of?
I think, having this pause that we discussed where I've been, doing the sock drawer, working on other things, it's made me reflect on that work, the filmmaking work. And I have concentrated on really telling the story of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. That's really been my life's work to date. All of my work has been that, whether it be Jasper Jones or the story of Eddie Mabo and his wife Benita, or, documentaries like The First Australians and most recently The Australian Wars. All of it has had that in it somewhere. And that's been a very motivating thing for me to do, because I've seen the benefit. I've had it's gone into schools. I've had people tell me, why weren't we told this stuff? It's changed policies, in the War Memorial, I think, in part. So it has been wonderful to see it reach the people that we had hoped and have the effect that we wanted. But now, having done that for more than 30 years, I sort of think, well, what will I do now? And I suppose I've never been a filmmaker who's like thought, okay, I'm going to do like a genre film. I'm going to do like a car heist film, or I'm going to do like, a Marvel film. Not that they would want me to, but, I haven't ever done any of that sort of work. It's always been driven by this very powerful, very important, worthwhile cause. But I haven't had the sort of luxury, if you like, of just thinking I'll make a movie in space.
You'll just make a holiday romance film.
Yeah, but then, so maybe I'll do that, but maybe I won't, because making films is pretty tough, and it's a great privilege in Australia that we can do that we have the funding to do that. But so look, I really don't know what I'm going to do next. I've got a couple of features in the pipeline, but I might just
move on from the sock drawer to another drawer.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird not to have something like in process, because I always have. So, but look, it's been the greatest privilege to have a camera to lead me around mostly Australia, go to places I would have never gone to, meet amazing people like Eddie Mabo's wife, like go to the Kimberley and go to all these amazing places. Like, as you would know, it's a wonderful privilege to work in the industries that we do, and it takes you to so many places. You get to meet people you wouldn't have. So the privilege has been all mine, really.
I think that's a beautiful place to end it. Thank you so much for your time, Rachel.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
That was Antoinette and Rachel Perkins there, and you can find The Australian Wars on any good bookstore and online. And before we get into this weekend list, there's some other news that you might have come across in your social feeds.
You see these beautiful flowers? No, they're not from a secret admirer. It turns out my secret admirers are quite stingy.
These are actually from the briefing team because after 4 years, I am leaving the listener family. I am leaving the briefing team. It has been an incredible journey. I've loved, particularly over the past 2 years, hosting the weekend briefing and bringing guests to you in deep interviews with incredible people from all over the world. But it's time for me to focus on Et Media. It's time for me to grow my independent media company with Jan Fran. As it turns out, Jan Fran also used to be a host here at the briefing. She actually went on maternity leave, and that's when I first stepped in, and they haven't been able to get rid of me since then. But a huge thanks to the briefing family who've always been so wonderful and supportive. I will miss you. Goodbye.
That's right. Antoinette will be finishing up with the briefing this year, but fear not, we have some amazing weekend briefing apps lined up for you on the way with some of your favourite briefing hosts. In the meantime, let's get into the list with Chris Spyrou. Chris, what is your first recommendation?
Oh, hello, the first list of 2026. I'm so excited. Now, I have 2 recommendations. I have a watching recommendation and I have a cooking-related recommendation. Which would you like me to
Let's
start
go with the watch.
Okay. I highly urge everyone listening, if you are someone who's gotten to a certain point with Stranger Things, finish it off because the way that they tape it off the season, the series, not the season, but the series is good. It's very masterful. They do, they nod to a lot of things earlier on. So you're watching things in season 5 because that's the season that we're at now, and they're really paying homage to season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4, and they really they're trying to close and put a neat little bow on a lot of storylines. They don't close all the storylines. There's a lot of unanswered questions, which is highly irritating and unsettling, but I actually want to talk to the briefers about this because none of my friends have watched it.
I also haven't finished it or watched it.
No, and there's so many people that haven't finished it and are saying they're not going to finish it, so I need someone to talk to about Stranger Things. So briefer, you on the other end of the line, please listen and reach out in the DMs and we can discuss this.
So is it good though? Because online we've seen mixed reviews.
It's not bad.
Okay, but worth the watch.
Yeah.
So it's a half recommendation just because you want to talk about it?
Correct. I need a sounding board on this one. It's a 2-hour final episode. It could have ended after hour 1.
Chris.
Yeah, I know.
Who's got the time?
I know there's someone here that's listening, so just chuck a comment in Spotify.
Yeah, we want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I need some inspo here.
No, I like that. Let us know what you think of that. Now, my first recommendation is a book. It's called Invisible Women, Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. So here's the sell. Imagine a world where your phone is too big for your hand, your doctor prescribes a drug that is wrong for your body. In a car accident, you are 47% more likely to be injured. If that sounds familiar, chances are you're a woman.
Oh,
so
I see.
It dives deep into the world of, we've got the gender pay gap. This is the gender data gap on how most of the world's data is on males, men.
Oh, right. Yep.
And the reason why it's called Invisible Women is because it's playing on the world that women are invisible in most of history, in the way that medicine works a lot of the time, in drug prescriptions, what it mentioned there. And it's so fascinating, and it goes into the biases of how it happens, how it's not always purposeful as well. It's written by Caroline Criado Perez, and it brings together for the first time an impressive range of case studies, stories, and new research from across the world that illustrates these hidden ways in which women are forgotten and the profound impact that it has on all of us.
Weirdly enough, you just reminded me of the movie Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like all the women behind the scenes that got man on the moon or into space. I don't want to misquote it. I don't have it in front of me. But it's a very interesting...
It's the forgotten women of history.
And
it's so interesting. And if you really want to find out more, I can't recommend that enough. It's called Invisible Women.
Great. Okay, my second recommendation is a cooking recommendation. Now, I famously don't cook all that much. I can assemble food. I can put food together.
Shame to the Greek community.
Oh, so true, so true. So yesterday when I got home, my friend who loves fishing, he had brought home some fish, and my brother was like, he wanted to have a crack at cooking fish. And I was like, oh man, I'm so hungry, especially with the morning shifts. You come home, I just want to eat.
Yeah.
My brother's over because it's school holidays. He's a teacher and he has all this spare time in the world. So now he's decided to take up cooking fish or barbecuing fish.
Okay.
The only time I enjoy eating fish is when I close my eyes and taste chicken.
Okay.
And now here's the little secret, a little hack for you, briefers.
So you hate fish, but yeah.
Because I don't like the bones. I don't like chewing into anything and like having to remove
If you're eating
bones.
bones in your fish, you're not eating good fish.
Oh, is that what's going
Yes.
down? Oh, no. Oh, well, look, this is all that was on offer.
Continue.
This is all that was on offer. But if you're like me and you want your fish to taste like chicken,
Right.
paprika.
So you've discovered the most basic spice
Yes.
in the world, paprika.
No, well, I've discovered that the most basic spice in the world pairs beautifully with fish. Paprika. A little bit of lemon, a little bit of paprika. You're on the barbecue.
Oh, my
Away you go.
God.
Chris is a happy, happy boy.
Now
That's my recommendation.
Great one.
Thank you so much. It's so weird you don't have follow-up questions anyway.
It's quite strange. I'm shocked. This new information.
Usually Helen vets all my weekend
I didn't vet
briefing
this one,
list
and you can tell.
recommendations. She did not.
All right, moving on. My last recommendation
Mm-hmm.
is to create an interactive or collaborative note in your Notes app. Now, this is if you're an Apple user. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I understand what you're saying. I've just never seen this feature
It's
before.
amazing.
Wow.
So, you know your normal Notes app where you just pop down your thoughts, your notes. It's probably scrambled like
Shopping
most
lists.
of us. Shopping list, anything.
Paprika's going to be on a lot of people's shopping.
Sure it will. Add it to the list. Now, you can actually create a collaborative Notes app. So it's kind of like a Google Doc, right? Where everyone can edit and collab live in the doc and you can see it with everyone. You can do that in your Notes app, and it's so good when you are creating lists with friends or even a shopping list, for example. You can collaborate live in there
Yes.
and create a shopping list or create this is the things we want to do together, like restaurants you want to visit or activities you need to do.
Itineraries. Party
anything
lists.
like that. Yes.
Favourite brands of
hey,
paprika.
We're going to this event. Can XYZ bring blah, blah, blah? And you can tick it off. You can edit it in real life. I am obsessed with this. All you have to do is you open and create a note in the Notes app. But the key feature is you need to make sure you're creating it in an iCloud. You can't just create it on your phone. You've got to create it in the iCloud. It's actually quite simple. Then you tap share, the share button, and you select collaborate, and then you can choose who you want to invite to that note. And you can change the settings, who can view it, who can make changes. So you could even have a collaborative note that people can just view, but they don't have to collab, but the collab's the fun part because you can see everyone's cursors in there and editing in real time.
So it's like a Google
It's
Doc
fun.
on your phone in real time.
Yeah, but it's more fun.
Love
you
it.
can put emojis.
Yes.
You can have a ball.
Can I also say the Notes app, everyone sleeps on the Notes app. The Notes app
Love
has so
the Notes
many
app.
features that you should
So
go
many.
and explore.
You can draw.
You can do tables. You can do checklists.
You can put photos in there.
You can highlight. Oh, you can put photos and then you can draw on the
Yes.
photos in there. Yeah, get around it.
Yeah.
For our Samsung listeners, sorry.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
There might be a thing. Let us know. If there is a thing that you can collaborate on Samsung, please let us know at The Briefing Podcast on Instagram. But that is it for this episode of The Weekend Briefing. Thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you thought of this chat with Antoinette and Rachel Perkins. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, and you can also find us on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. The team will be back in your ears on Monday morning with the latest headlines and a wonderful deep dive for you. We'll catch you next week. Until then, stay safe, everyone.